Hello, my name is Matthew, and here is Andy. And Steve and I have had our book club, our read-alongs, and this month we've been reading Daredevil: Born Again, and this is by um, Frank Miller and I always forget his name, Dave Mazzucchelli. And today, or this week, we read parts 3 and 4, which it's Pariah and Born Again. And it starts off with that same aerial, and so uh, Matt Murdock, Daredevil's life, um, is getting worse and worse, and so we get these aerial shots of him sleeping, first in um, like a very nice apartment, and then in some kind of hovel, and now he's just in a dumpster. There's Matt Murdock. He's been beaten to death. Kingpin has nearly killed him. His house has been blown up, and he's just left for dead, seriously injured. This is where it starts, and it just keeps getting worse. It's Matt Murdock, Daredevil, um, getting to just the absolute lowest point. And the Kingpin's plan, in part, was to break him. And then also, the hope was to kill him. And Kingpin finds out that Daredevil survived, and now the Kingpin is just going insane about this. And the great thing, so we started this, and unlike all the other book clubs, book readings that Steve and I had done, I couldn't help read the whole thing. And so now going back, reading each section so it's fresh in my mind to talk about, it really shows how great it is to reread it and enjoy different aspects, spend time really enjoying the art, which is just incredible. Like, look at this image. It's amazing. It's just a beautiful, beautiful panel. And we see um, Daredevil. Actually, we don't. Daredevil's not in the next several issues. It's just Matt Murdock looking like a homeless person or a bum, just staggering and swaying through the streets. He's been beaten up by the Kingpin, and he's had this car accident, and he's nearly died. Um, he has internal injuries. He gets hit by a car while he's staggering through the street. He gets beat up by two street toughs that have taken these Santa Claus outfits. So he gets beat up by a Santa Claus, and he staggers back to Hell's Kitchen, which um, at the time that this was written really was one of the seediest, worst neighborhoods in New York City. And he just collapses, and he's saved by a nun. This nun here finds him and takes him to a church hospital. And we have there's other storylines happening. We're seeing what's going on with Karen Page, whose life is also just degenerating. She's a junkie. She sold out Matt Murdock by revealing his secret identity, or revealing that he is the Daredevil, for drugs, just to get a momentary high. So she's just spiraled into drug addiction. We just see her with practically just gangsters and horrible people that are mistreating her, abusing her, beating her, and she's completely degenerated as well. She's trying to steal change, homeless people that have little buckets out or cans. She tries to go by and steal money from beggars. She gets caught and whacked in the head by one of the beggars. We have a reporter that's reporting on all of this, and I think it's the fourth chapter where we get a cameo by J. Jonah Jameson. I don't know if I can find it while I'm speaking, but just fabulous. Here we are. Look at this. This is J. Jonah Jameson making an appearance at the famed Daily Bugle. And we get these great shots of really intense journalists and reporters running around and yelling out that we're 3 minutes to deadline and we have blank space, and we have his name's Ulrich, I believe, and he's this conflicted reporter. He has a lead. He has a story involving what we're reading about, Matt Murdock and the Kingpin, and if he writes this story, he can blow the whole case wide open. We have this like a side villain. It's this two-fisted nurse that is like beating people up, and she breaks the hand of or breaks his fingers of the reporter and threatens that if he mentions Matt Murdock's name, she'll break the other hand. So he's been hospitalized, but also he's wavering whether or not to pursue it. And so J. Jonah Jameson is just like reading him the riot act about how you can't back down on a story. And we also have Foggy. So Foggy is Daredevil, or Matt Murdock's longtime friend and longtime law partner. After Matt's life fell apart, Foggy's life is actually going really well. And it's a strangely pleasant reprieve or counterbalance to all of the terrible things that are happening to Matt. We see Foggy falling in love and getting the girl that he loves, and having a nice apartment, and getting gifts, and going out to eat, and getting a new job. And we always go back to him. And the thing about the chapters that we read this week, Pariah and Born Again, it really shows that these are pieces of a whole. So this is a whole story instead of serialized episodes, because not very much happens action-wise, no super heroics, no great finale ending to each individual issue, but it's building up to something. And part 3 ends with the Kingpin just mad, insane, that this beautiful, meticulous plan that was so well orchestrated just didn't hit the landing. So Matt Murdock is still alive, and we have this panel. So we have the Kingpin doing his exercises, because he's not fat. That's supposed to all be muscle. He's like super strong. And he says he's talking about Matt Murdock, and it's curious. Some up to this point in the world of superheroes, so much of it makes sense. Kingpin's plan to just eliminate an annoyance, because Daredevil, the superhero, doesn't have high level superpowers. He has echolocation because he's blind. Even says in here, he was blind because his eyes got hit with radioactive garbage. But he can hear really well, and he can smell really well, and he's really fit. But he's not super strong. Not shouldn't be a major risk to Kingpin, and his overreaction that comes later on really shows that not that Daredevil was a huge risk, but an irritation. It's now personal, but it ends with let's see. So he talks about the Daredevil, and then he says, and what about Murdoch? He was a minor concern, a promising talent to be observed and cataloged, and even occasionally flattered, and perhaps one day to be turned to the Kingpin's way. But he is more than this. Now he is much more than this. He always was. And I have shown him that a man without hope is a man without fear. This end of chapter 3, where you get this kind of retro styling, old school classic look of Daredevil's image. And again, beginning of the fourth chapter is that aerial view with Matt having that Christ-like pose surrounded by nuns. And Kingpin is now coming up with this plan. He's going to bring in an outsider to take care of Daredevil, and it's this mysterious new name that when he says it just runs a shock through anyone that hears it. It's Nuke. This villain's name is Nuke, and people say like, oh no, you never use Nuke for domestic affairs, and when he mentions it and someone pushes back at Kingpin, he said, my statement did not invite debate. And look at this image. Look how great that looks. Just how gigantic how gigantic Kingpin looks by way of the perspective, the way that we're looking at it, the proportions, all the bodies in the background shows him to be a physical threat. The slight assistant here on the side. It's just a great image of a massive man, the Kingpin. And a lot of the fourth part is Matt Murdock's recovery. He's just recovering. He's been beaten to a pulp, even gets beaten up by a Santa Claus, and it almost gives the feeling that he has superhuman willpower, or superhuman determination, or maybe superhuman healing powers, because at one point the nuns that are helping him are talking about how it's getting worse, his temperature's too high, there's no way he's coming back, and then they're showing like a pulse, that beeping pulse, and he miraculously recovers because he still has things to do. He's retribution. But we get more of the story with Karen Page and Foggy. And there's really nothing in this that's very funny. It's not funny, but we're just seeing the awful life of Karen Page. It's pitiful. It's just sad. She's a character to feel pity for. Foggy's life is going pretty well. So Karen calls Foggy, and Foggy just kind of picks up the phone and says, "How's it going?" She's on the other end, like, "Okay, it's not going well." And they get together. She now has like she's her body has been physically ravaged by drug use, and also she's in this abusive. It's hard to even call it a relationship, but she's just with this person that's feeding her drugs and beating her. So she has like a black eye, and her mouth is all banged up. I think that's when the hobo hit her. And she sits down. They're at this diner. She wants to talk to Foggy. Foggy's just sitting there, and he goes, "You look good." No, no, she doesn't, Foggy. She doesn't look good. And he fills her in on what's going on in Matt's life, Matt Murdock's life. And they both have pieces of information that each doesn't know. So Karen Page knows that she sold his name, that all of the terrible things that have happened to Matt Murdock are the repercussions of her giving away that information. Look at the Kingpin. This is really a Kingpin comic book. Kingpin's the star. It's just that he's the villain. Here's a two-fisted nurse killing somebody. Yeah. The artwork is incredible. And let's see. Yeah, here's the encounter. We have a battered Karen Page. Where's Foggy? Yeah, he has this stupid look on his face. And again, it's just build up. It's the time, it's the breather for after Daredevil, Matt Murdock's downfall. It's his time to heal, and we just have these storylines circling around, and it has a strange ending because he asks the nun, "Are you my mother?" And she says no, and then he can sense her heartbeat fluttered, and so he knows that she's lying. So I don't know the whole story about Daredevil, but maybe his mom's a nun. And again, but for these two issues, there's no Daredevil at all. It's just seeing what the Kingpin is doing, following the reporter around, following Karen Page, her and Foggy finally meeting, the Kingpin coming up with all of his plans. It's all building up to where the story is going, and it was it's necessary and satisfying. Rereading it again is just as satisfying. The story, the characters, the dialogue, and the artwork are all working really well. So those are my thoughts on our read along for week 2, Daredevil, Born Again. The issues are Pariah and then Born Again. I can't wait to hear what Steve has to say, talking about the book as well. I hope you've been enjoying Andy sitting here, being part of the book club. And if you've been reading along as well, please let me know what you think. So thank you for watching. Please leave a comment if you would like, and